Good afternoon. My name is Jay Johnson. We're here at the Royal Church. Just a few days ago on Sunday, we had a message about the resurrection of Jesus. We talked about the resurrection of the body, and then we talked about the resurrected body. And we discussed what it means to have the resurrected body. I made the comment on Sunday. I said, when Adam was originally created, he was meant to live forever. And when he was created in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, God said, let us make man in our own image. Let us make him male and female. Now the word male is the Hebrew word. It's zakar. It means to remember. So we as human beings are called to remember things that have occurred in our relationship with God. We are called to remember. Now, this is really important because when Adam was first created, he had all these vivid, intimate relationships with God. He spoke with him, he saw him, he talked to him, he heard him. He was in the garden with God for we don't know how long before he was required to leave the garden. But I'd like you to take a look at this map, this chart that I have of the genealogy that comes from the individuals from Adam all the way down to Noah. At the creation, obviously Adam was the first man created. We know the story what happened to his first two sons, Cain and Abel. According to the biblical record in Genesis chapter 5, these are the generations listed. It was Seth and Enosh, and we can go through the record. It's in Genesis the 5th chapter, and we see that all of these, we can put the name, we can calculate the ages that they were, and if you go through this record, you will see that Adam was alive during the lifetimes of Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, and Lamech. Adam was alive during all his entire life covered the spans of these generations. Just after Adam passed, Noah was born. And Noah was, as we know from Genesis chapter 6, all the wickedness of the world had occurred in such a level of wickedness that God said, the earth has to be destroyed. Now the question is, here's my question for you. What happened between Adam through these generations that they forgot about God? What was the point? Well, the text that we're going to be discussing that we actually talked about on Sunday, 15th chapter of 1 Corinthians, talks about the first Adam, which was this guy, our ancestor, and the last Adam was Jesus. So the first Adam failed, where the second Adam completes it. I'd like you to think about this phrase, the silence of Adam. When Adam failed to tell these generations about his will, there's a reason why it went belly up. There's a reason why Adam didn't do it, because we have no record of anything that Adam actually said or talked or spoke to any of these descendants. We do have an indication it must have passed on some way, because it says Enoch was so holy that he was one of the only two men in history to not die. And secondly, his descendant Noah, his great-great-great-great-grandson, he was considered as a righteous man by God. So let's go back to the text. So as we looked at the chart of Adam and his descendants. It went from perfection to quietness to silence. And then, as it says in that passage in Genesis 6, verse 5, to wickedness, so much so that the inclination of every man's thought was to wickedness, to evil in all things. So where does that put us? This passage in 1 Corinthians 15 says this: so what is written, the first man, Adam, was a living being, and the last Adam, which is Jesus, was a life-giving spirit. Jesus Christ wants us to talk about him. We have been silent for way too long. We have slipped into situations across time in this century and previous centuries where we have muzzled ourselves. We've chosen not to talk about God. We've chosen that because it's an easier way, because we think there are wiser and smarter people than us. But you know, we don't need to fear that. It says in Matthew chapter 10, verse 20 and 21, we don't need to worry about what we're going to say, because it's the Spirit of the Father that will speak through us. That's what the text says. And if we say something, and I hear people say this all the time, well, I don't want people looking at me, I don't want them to give me the honor. Well, you know, if you're getting the honor, that's wrong anyway. You're supposed to be giving the honor to Christ. Christ is the one that receives the honor. Because when we honor Christ in the things we say and do and where we are, and He gets the credit, then we are known as those who are Christ bearers. We are the tellers of truth. We're often too afraid. I'll give you one last example. When I was 17, it was in high school, and it was in September that year, September or October. We were harvesting beans. I think it was beans, probably beans. Could have been corn, but I'm thinking it was beans. So my dad said, Jay, would you take this load of beans down to the elevator in Glassford? I said, Dad, I don't really want to go. And he said, you don't have to say anything to anybody. Just go down there. And the guy that ran the elevator, his name was Charlie Powell. And Charlie and my dad were really good friends. And so I drove up, I weighed the truck, and I came in, and they gave me the slip of how much it weighed. My dad said, all you got to do is go in the office, and you'll pick up the slip that shows you how much was in the truck. I walked in, and I just sat there, and pretty soon Charlie looks over and he goes, you Al Johnson's boy? Yeah. See, I didn't say a word. But he evidently, and he did say, well, I thought it was you just by the way you are. You look like Johnson's boy. You look like a Johnson. And I'll tell you, for me, that was a boost, because I was recognized not for what I did, but for who I was, because he recognized me as my Father's son. We are to be recognized as our Father's children. And that day was a huge turn. It was for me, that I was recognized as Al Johnson's boy. I wasn't recognized as one of those Johnson younger brothers that was goofy or something like that. I was recognized for a means and a measure that really changed my life. We're here to talk about Jesus Christ. We are here in our culture to talk about our Heavenly Father. So thanks for stopping by today. Thanks for checking in. Remember, we are part of the resurrection, and that means we have renewed voices and more courage. Thanks for coming. Take care. Bye now.